Another really good primetime game, Seattle Seahawks at the Detroit Lions. It's Monday night, part 2 of Monday night's doubleheader, second straight week of a Monday night doubleheader. Just want to get this on the record really quick. Big fan of the Monday night doubleheader. I think 2 games at once is great. I like the staggered starts. I think it's all great. Jeff Schwartz was saying he hates it. Nobody wants it. Jeff Schwartz is wrong. I called him out on Twitter. I said, Jeff, you're wrong. You're wrong. This is great. It's great for fans. You lose a game, especially for me. You know, you and I know you don't love this, but you and I got to watch those 8 and 9 games at a time in the 1 o'clock window. When you steal a game from the 1 o'clock window and drop it into Monday night and you stagger it, I think it's beautiful. I think it's a great thing. Big fan of doubleheaders. Monday Night Football.
He's wrong that nobody wants it because evidently you want it.
I want it. Right?
I do, however, think that he's correct that more people don't want it than want it. Like I think the majority trend is disliking a doubleheading Monday Night Football thing. I don't think that I love it, to be honest. And your reason, like if it's a choice of 10 games in the 1 p.m. slot or you can have a doubleheader Monday night and lose one of them, I would take the game out of the 1 p.m. slot. However, last week showed you can do that any damn time you want, and having 10 games in a 1 p.m. slot is just stupid. Like, just move 3 of them to the 4 p.m. slot and stop it being 10 games. That's not a reason to have a Monday Night Football doubleheader. It's just a reason to pick 3 random East Coast 1 p.m. games and say, sorry, you're playing at 4 this week.
I just think the attention span can handle 2, right? You never have to watch a commercial pretty much the entire time. The only issue I have as a dad of 4, who works till about 5 p.m. every day, it's like, it's a quick turnaround, right? With dinner and bedtimes, it's a quick turnaround. Like, hey, honey, I'm going back to work here in an hour and a half. The game's coming on. That's the only issue that I'm running into.
Well, your previous problem was also you were at one of the games.
But I had my iPad. I was watching both.
Yeah.
It was great. That was easy, though. I'm like, hey, honey, I'm going to the game. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
You take the kids tonight. I'll take
it
one
still
of them.
doesn't feel like it's optimal,
Anyway, we're talking Seahawks-Lions. Seahawks are 3-0. Lions are 2-1. Lions are favored by 3.5 here. These teams have had a couple shootouts last couple of years, some really good games in the Dome in particular.
Yeah, and Aiden Hutchinson's run against backup offensive linemen just continues pace.
This is that Max Crosby.
It really is.
You didn't want to give Max Crosby any credit a couple of years ago because he's facing second and third stringers. But
it wasn't that I didn't want to give him credit, but it was that you can't look at that production and not ask the question, how much of this is real and how much of this is a product of going up against backup offensive linemen? And I think you now have to ask the same question about Aiden Hutchinson. Now, Aiden Hutchinson had 100-plus pressures last year. We know he's really good, right? So you don't at least that is not a question. Like, it wasn't, if it had happened last year, because that was the Max Crosby thing. It was his breakout year where he had the insane run against backup players. So you kind of have to say, well, how much of this is a real breakout and how much of this is he's just playing garbage? Aiden Hutchinson already had the breakout, so at least we don't have to ask that question. But he's leading the league by 7 pressures over at PFF.com. He's got 2 more sacks than anybody else. Like, you do have to at least ask the question, how much of a 94 pass rushing grade, 7 pressures more than anybody else, 2 sacks more than anybody else, is he hasn't yet faced a real offensive lineman?
I mean, so that's fine. Like, if you're trying to unpack, is Aiden Hutchinson actually better this year than Micah Parsons and TJ Watt and Myles Garrett? If you're trying to have that conversation, fine. I am of the mind, though, that it's okay to beat up on your advantages, right? It's okay.
Of course it's okay.
It's okay. It's good to dominate when you have the advantage. You should, and you should do it in an emphatic fashion. That's what Aiden Hutchinson has done.
And for the purposes of this game, it means that once again, Aiden Hutchinson is a singularly defining player in this game because Seattle, again, like we said before, their entire week has to be about what are the plays that are on the table against Aiden Hutchinson and how much extra resources are we sending to him every single play.
In Seattle's offensive line, they struggled. I mean, they win pretty handily last week. Had Tua been there, maybe it's a lot closer. And we're talking about, hey, Seattle's guards kind of struggled in pass protection last week. I do wonder if Hutchinson moves around a little bit. Week 1, he moved to face the third-string left tackle for the Rams. They were attacking those weaknesses. I wonder if Hutchinson goes. He's got an advantage with Stone Forsythe probably playing right tackle for the Seahawks this week, but also Anthony Bradford struggled at guard. Laken Tomlinson's had some struggles in pass protection at guard. You might be able to move Hutchinson around a little bit. They lose a little bit of that depth without Marcus Davenport there for sure now. But yeah, Hutch is going to be the guy Seattle's looking at. Geno Smith's playing some really clean football right now too. Some confidence. He's taking care of the ball. He's got 3 picks on the other. He's on the other end of the luck there. He's had a couple batted passes that got picked. A weird one last week, close to the Reds, coming out in their own territory. But Geno's playing really well, confidently, and they have the ability, Seattle, to play mismatches, to play whatever the defense is taking away. They have options. DK Metcalf is getting behind the defense once or twice a week. Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith and Jigba, both good possession options. It's a really nice mix, I think, in Seattle right now.
Baltimore's defense finished last year, right? Number 1 in the NFL in EPA per play against. It was them and the Browns that were 1 and 2, right?
Yeah, they're right there.
So Seattle is leading that this year. So theoretically, or in broad picture terms, the best defense in the NFL has left Baltimore and joined Seattle in terms of their coach, right?
Let's at least put the context around Seattle's defense performance so far. Skylar Thompson last week.
Sure.
The second start of Bo Nix's career. The first start of Bo Nix's career in week 1, and Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah.
In week 2. So that's who they faced.
Right. Whether or not they're number 1, they've clearly upgraded significantly on the defensive side of the ball. This new defensive scheme is paying dividends, and it is now a challenging defense for any quarterback. And yes, it's been especially challenging for young and or bad quarterbacks through 3 weeks. My point that I'm driving towards is that it's a difficult defense for Jared Goff, who has not played that well for the first few weeks of the season. Like, Goff is going to be facing one of the more difficult defense he faces, and whether or not Jared Goff turns the ball over is probably going to be a fairly significant part of this game.
Yeah, I mean, I made the statement last week. I think Detroit is I don't know, it's all Goff in week 2, but he's got 5 turnover-worthy plays through 3 weeks and 4 actual interceptions. If he just takes care of the ball, man. They're a powerhouse. Right. They're still a powerhouse. They're just as good as they were last year, probably better.
And so much of this is the league-wide trend overall, right? But, also, how many of these quarterbacks just signed a giant contract and are playing like crap? Like, Jared Goff is playing terribly, and he just got handed the bag. Trevor Lawrence is playing badly. He just got handed the bag. Tua, sadly for him, got knocked out of the game, so it's not like he was playing terribly. But Jordan Love got injured. Every one of these giant contracts that got signed is resulting in nothing yet. Okay,
I don't want to overrate 3 weeks, but if passing offense is down, right, and even if rushing offense is static, right, and the nerds over there would say, oh, well, passing's still way more effective than running. Play for play it is, but if passing's down, running is more valuable, and if passing's down, there's a little bit less on the quarterback, right? There's a little bit less, not pressure on the quarterback, but the quarterback is a less of a driver of success. So I think this is now putting more of the success on coaching.
Yeah.
And then if games are tighter and closer, the quarterback advantages are now tighter, and it comes down to coaching and defense and run game, and all those things get elevated just a little bit, right? So I think that's kind of the world we're in this small sample in 2024. Defenses and coaches and all these things matter a little bit more than they did previously.
I mean, I'll give you another theory. This is probably a Wednesday topic for the future, but you speculated before that the current trend of defense winning, all of a sudden game managing quarterbacks have become sort of more valuable again. I also wonder if it's meant that middle class of quarterback that you could talk yourself into giving $50 million a year is suddenly much worse than it was 12 months ago, right? Like Jared Goff and Trevor Lawrence and Tua and all these guys who you knew are not really elite, but they're good enough that you can be like, yeah, we can get that kind of elite play out of them in our offense with our system.
If Goff and Tua in particular, within our system, with our coordinator, with our playmakers, we know they can have success.
So we're going to have to pay him $55 million a year. What if those guys, because of everything that's happening on defense, their actual ability to play at that level has just been taken away, and they're not. They're only, the best you're going to get out of those guys now is reasonable play, at which point now you've suddenly saddled yourself with this millstone of a contract for guys that are not capable of playing at that level anymore. That will be something to monitor going forward.
It's just something to keep an eye on. You're right. It might be more of a deep dive Wednesday topic. It's like, what in today's NFL are there certain things that are valued more? And I would argue coaching, both sides of the ball. It's always been important, but I think it just gets elevated a little bit here. But it's also a great coaching matchup, right? You do have Ben Johnson going up against Mike McDonald and his defense. For whatever it's worth, remember last year when Baltimore was making their run and McDonald was over there. The reason why, Baltimore had a special regular season because it was like the opposite of the Cowboys. Every time they went up against one of the best teams in the league, they killed them. They crushed Detroit last year at home. They did it against the Niners. They did it against the Dolphins. And so is there any – they did give Jared Goff in this offense, some problems last year in Baltimore with Mike McDonald in that scheme.
Those signature games is kind of what won Lamar MVP.
Yeah, every time they went up against one of the best teams or another MVP candidate or whatever it may have been, Baltimore brought their best to the table. So we're talking about Seattle now. I'm just talking about McDonald and what they've been able to do. But either way, this is McDonald and Seattle's defense's biggest challenge that they've faced by far. Really impressed by everything that Seattle has done. I still think Detroit is outstanding. Detroit's almost certainly without Frank Ragnow. I don't think he's been put on IR or anything, right?
Right.
But if they're without Ragnow, that does hurt a little bit of that depth. It sounds like Glasgow maybe is moving to center. It hurts the depth up front for the Lions.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add on this game? I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah, it really will be. Detroit's offense, as much as we're sort of highlighting the potential concern for Goff, they do still have speed and explosiveness across the board. Like, they are dangerous. They're capable. They are very difficult to bottle up and contain. So it's going to be a really fun matchup.
I love how Detroit's built. Again, I still think they're a powerhouse. Favored by 3.5 against Seattle. My mind is going to Seattle, playing crazy games and Geno hanging tough against Detroit's pass rush as he has this year. I kind of like Seattle as the underdogs here, at least to cover it in a close game.
Yeah, same. I think that Goff might turn the ball over a couple of times, at which point it's going to be tough for the Lions to win and cover that.
So I'm taking Seattle. You're taking Seattle to cover the 3.5 as underdogs. Harry's doing the same. I keep picking on Goff, but I really think he's just kind of streaky. I think we'll hit a streak where he's playing really good football. That can happen at any time. So I'm not down on Goff. I think we just hit the bad end of his variance through 3 weeks of the season so far. He looked much better last week overall too, by the way. Still taking Seattle, though, because I think it'll be a good game.